All right, so this is about the time that I started or tried to start a praise team. Now, as a child, I sang in the children's choir from the age of 8 up until 17. And then I sang for the youth choir from the age of 14 up until I was about, yeah, 18 years old. So, anyway, I had an extensive history when it came to singing and being trained. Um, went through various choir directors, sang a solo, and so I know all about how to sing in terms of, my note and things like that. But anyway, in 2010, I wanted to start my own group, right? Because I was like, why not? I was contemplating the idea, and then I was speaking to a former friend of mine, and they gave me the inspiration to do it. And so my goal was to do this. I wanted to have a couple of singers, a drummer, a bass player, and a pianist. And so at this time, um, I got some people that I knew from high school that I knew could really sing. And then I got some people from my church. And then the other vocalist, the last vocalist, I got from another church. And the musicians are from were from about two or three different churches. And so the first night that I had rehearsal, I was able to get almost all of the singers here. Now, in terms of the musicians, I wasn't able to get them. I figured, okay, next rehearsal, we can make it happen. So, anyway, I finally got the team assembled. I had tenor, alto, and soprano, and everything was fine. But as I tried to progress and move on further with the praise team, people were saying, yo, why can't he have it at the church? Let me explain something to you. Anytime that you want to have rehearsal at a church, you got to do one or two things. You got to ask the pastor first, and you also might have to ask the board. And the only reason why I say that is because certain decisions are made, right? If you're going to have a rehearsal on a particular night, the person needs to know what time is the rehearsal, who's going to be in there, what time is the rehearsal going to end, because you're responsible not only for the people that come in, but you're responsible if there's any damage done to the building. So it's no time to play around. And I'm like, why am I going to go and ask the pastor if I can use the space when I already have everything that I need in my house? Like, meaning that I already had a PA system, I had instruments, I had everything, the whole nine. So, what would be the purpose of me having rehearsal at the church when I already have all of the instruments there that I need? Amps and other stuff like that, and the keyboard. But anyway, we still tried to soldier on and have rehearsal. And I want to say this started in October or November of 2010. At this time, I was in my third year of college. So I was still in school, right? And it was just something new that I wanted to try. And I had everybody on board. I could never get the musicians to come to rehearsal because, everybody lives in various places. And at that time, I don't think everybody drove like that. It was only like one person I knew that drove, and that was the drummer. The other musicians, I don't think that they drove at that time. But anyway, um, so yeah, I assembled the musicians. I assembled the group and I handpicked certain people, but later on things kind of got crazy. I would try to set up a rehearsal and I would call one person to come in and they wouldn't come. And then after that, they would tell me, like, yo, I wasn't feeling well. Meanwhile, not giving me no call or any consideration. And so by January of 2011, I said, that's it. The group is over. I'm done, you know, and other people started complaining. But here's the thing about it, I tried to hold a legit rehearsal. You know, I figured, okay, this is going to be something that's not only special, but this is going to be something that I'm doing. I'm getting together a group of people and let's try to form a group, right? Because back then, at this time, you had praise teams and churches and stuff like that. But usually these people were handpicked by, musical directors or pianists or whatever. But with my thing, I wasn't prominent in the church like that in terms of I wasn't singing solos on my own like that, or I wasn't directing anybody. I wanted something special. This was going to be something to show everybody like, yo, he can actually direct and lead. Because the first rehearsal that I had, I picked a song and everybody knew their notes. Like it was nothing. I didn't have to teach anything because everybody knew the song. But as we tried to go on and have more and more rehearsals, things got increasingly difficult. And it was just at that point where by January, like I said, by January 2011, I was like, that's it. I'm done. The crazy thing about it is that, I was still playing drums. I wasn't playing drums for a church at this time, but I was still a drummer. I was still practicing at home and I was also playing drums in college, like whenever there was like special concerts or something like that. But anyway, that happened. And after that, I decided, that's it. However, around the later part of 2011, I started having auditions. And what I tried to do was I would try to call local churches in the area and tell them, like, listen, I'm having auditions for my group. If you know anybody from your church that would like to sing, please let me know. Like, I literally made phone calls and messages to local churches, and people that I know from those churches would be surprised. Like, but back then I was young, nobody really cared. And, you know, I wasn't promoting it on social media until one day I decided to make a page on Facebook. And basically, I was trying to have auditions, and I had an audition for one particular person. And I said, hey, you're a part of the group and stuff. But that was it. Nothing else came to fruition. Nobody else wanted to join. And it was frustrating to me because I was like, man, I just wanted to have something special. You know, like I said, around this time, there were praise teams, but everybody was just small and, you know, starting out. Nobody really had any notoriety or pull like that, but I just wanted to do something that was very special, and I figured I could do it with a group of friends. But once again, parents kept on complaining because a lot of the people, if at this time I was um 19, about to turn 20, right? And so some of the individuals in the group, some of them were about, like, I'd say probably maybe like a few years younger than me, so I can understand why their parents wanted them to have rehearsal at the church. Maybe they thought by being at my house it'd be a liability, or they just thought it's too far to go drive over to his house to have these rehearsals. Nevertheless, um, I was annoyed at the time, but now that I'm older, I kind of understand. But also, if you plan to have a rehearsal, you got to ask. And at that time, I wasn't into speaking to the pastor and being like, yo, can I have a rehearsal at here? Because can I have a rehearsal at the church? Because I knew if I did, I would have gotten shot and down. I would have gotten shot down. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, nobody really knows me for anything. Like at this point, I'm small and insignificant in terms of, you know, I'm not doing anything at church musically. My position got taken over years earlier. So I'm not really active when it comes to music like that. And so I just felt like I want to have sorry. I just felt like I was not going to be heard. So I didn't go and ask to use that space. But at the same time, I wasn't going to. Why would I do that to myself? So that happened and I had the audition like I said, and I chose the individual and I knew that they could sing. And after a while, I just gave up on it. I was like, this is not going to happen. It's not meant to be. So, it is what it is. But here's the funny thing: about 10 years later, January 2021, right? When the churches were still closed because of the pandemic, because there were still some churches that were not yet active again. I had a friend of mine who asked me if I wanted to sing with his church's praise team. And I went to one initial rehearsal, and the rehearsal was okay. And that was in the beginning of 2021, January. February is when I started singing with them, and I sang approximately for a total of 10 months. So once every Friday night, I started going to rehearsal. And with these rehearsals, you would meet a lot of different people. Um, and sometimes the people would rotate, but it was really a good learning experience. It took me back to my days when I was in the children's choir. Like, and you got to understand, it's about four or five of us singing together in rehearsal. We're taking breaks. We have a full band. We got a drummer, bassist, pianist, and organist all together, working all together in these practices. So it was fun. Was it frustrating at times? Oh, of course. It was very frustrating, but I felt like, man, I'm using a gift that I rarely use, because while I sang solos here and there, through the past 10 years at that point, I was never really part of a praise team. Nobody ever really asked me, do you want to be a part of something like that? And it was special. And I got to know more of the people. And, you know, people would remember my face because they would see me pop in once a month, and I would sing with the praise team. And I had fun learning the songs, you know. And I want to tell you, it's different from a children's choir. A children's choir usually consists of 20 to 30 kids all together, and constantly every minute somebody telling you, be quiet, we're going to learn this part. Shh. You know, it's different from going from that to a rehearsal where it's just five people, and you guys are learning the parts and songs and stuff. But it was a fun experience. And then, just when I was starting to enjoy the praise team and I thought I would be there for a good minute, I got a call from a church that I used to play drums at. And at this point, I had been the drummer at this church for about 8 years. And they called me and they were like, hey, listen, we're going to start resuming services December 11th. We want you to come back. And I told them, listen, I'll come back, but I want to negotiate my payment, because up until that point, I had not been getting paid as a drummer. It's a long story, which I'll go into in another video. But anyway, um, so yeah, so the praise team that I had loved so much and grown accustomed to with all these people, because it was just it was a warm reception. I now had to leave, and so I made the difficult decision of telling them, hey, listen, next month I'm not going to be able to be with you guys. And so I left and I made my exit, and I started playing for this church I was playing for. And the church that I was playing for 8 years, I had been playing, only I started off twice a month. And then when they cut out my pay, I would only come 1 week. And then I started coming every third and fourth weekend, and every third and fourth Saturday. So it really it was all over the place. But 2021 is when things finally got cemented. They got a new pastor, and you know, they were trying to assemble a praise team. And the funny thing about that was, um they found somebody that was supposed to lead and deal with the praise team and stuff. And they came to the first initial rehearsal. And I remember the initial rehearsal was me, the praise team leader, and another individual. And, you know, we rehearsed, we did our thing. The next day, we as a band, we did our first set of songs and everything was good. It was just three of us. And then next week, the the praise team leader ended up getting sick and was supposed to come back probably within the next week or so and never did. And so we just kind of got abandoned. And then we had a pianist. The original pianist flopped. And then there was a guy that came to the initial rehearsal for the day before the church opened back up. So it was a lot of stuff going on. And then we ended up getting a permanent pianist. And so other people were brought on board. Um, Another vocalist was brought on board. And then I remember there was a young lady that had started going to the church with her mother, and the pastor kind of convinced her, "Hey, listen, why don't you join the praise team?" So now it was three people. Three people were in the praise team now. So it was three people, me who was the drummer, and then we had the pianist. And so it was about five of us. And then there was another individual who came to church one day and saw the praise team and was like, "Hey, I want to join." So now it was four of them, you know? So things expanded and grew. And I'm just like, wow. And then because of the fact that everybody found out that I could sing, they were like, "Yo, can you join the praise team?" I'm like, "No." Like, like, no. And then I was like, "Okay, I'll sing with y'all sometimes, but not all the time because I got to play drums." And so it's amazing where life takes you, you know, because I'm going to be honest with you. This is not my first time playing for a praise team as a drummer. And I'll explain to you. When I was 15, no, when I was 14 years old, I had my first experience, not only as a church drummer, but being the first drummer for my church. This is around the time when we first got drums. And so I would play for the praise team almost every Saturday, like clockwork. This is after we had finished a crusade. You know, this is my first official time playing for a praise team. And I went to one initial rehearsal, and that was it. And at this time, I was also in the children's choir. So, I was in 10th grade back then. About a year into it, I could see that the praise team, they weren't really warming up to me anymore. And they were like, "Yo, you playing too slow," and all this stuff. And I ended up getting replaced months later. And I was a little bit hurt by it. But now that I'm older, I could understand why. You know, I was just starting out. I didn't really have anybody to mentor me as a musician. And so that's why it was so easy for me to be replaced at that time, and I was 14. But the second time that I got a chance to play, now I'm older. And at this point, I'm like, how old was I? If this was 2021, I am, when I was 30 at this point. Yeah, so I'm 30. And, finally I got a chance to play again. And it was a great feeling. But this time, the second time around playing for a praise team, it felt right. And obviously I'm older at this point and I could negotiate certain things. But back then when I first started playing for a praise team, I didn't really have anyone that had my back. So it was very easy for me to be replaced, and there were many times that I saw youth in my church where I had grown up at where they got mentored. and they were given certain tools in terms of musicality, but I didn't have mentors like that in terms of music, like at church. So it kind of, um, it hurt a little bit, but life goes on. And, those are growing pains and you learn with certain things. So when I was trying to get my group started in 2011, it was a good idea, but I don't think that I had structure. And that's why it fell apart. And I believe that if I had worked a little bit harder on trying to cement everything, it would have been all right. But it wasn't, you know? And I appreciate everyone that came to my house for that first initial rehearsal. That was great. Like, think about this. Let's look at this timeline. My career in music starts off in 2005, playing for my church's praise team. By 2007, I get clipped. So, for a total of, I want to say 7 years, I'm not playing at a church at all. Like, I still play drums at home, but I'm not playing for a church. And then in 2011, I decided to start my own musical group. That doesn't work out. Sorry, 2010, I tried to start my own musical group, but that doesn't work out. And by January 2011, it fades out. May 2011, I become a church drummer and I have a position at a small church. It's nothing, you know, too big. And then by 2013, I get another gig. Now I have two churches that I'm playing for. So now I'm getting paid and all this stuff. And then the first church that I played for closes out because of rent issues and all this other stuff. And then the second church I start playing for, they tell me they can't pay me because I'm not a member and stuff. And then years later, I played for this church, and now there's a new pastor. Now they want to pay me and everything like that. And just before this, I'm singing for another church's praise team. And I end up having to leave because of this new opportunity, you know? And then I become a part member. Then I partly become a member of a praise team, So it's weird. You know what I'm saying? And I say that because oftentimes I believe that God takes you through certain things. There's lessons that He wanted me to learn with each of those experiences. When I first started playing at 14, I wasn't strong as a drummer, you know. Now I'm a little bit better, but I still need to work on certain things, even at my age, you know. When it comes to the music, the singing, um, I got to work on stuff too, but I've been blessed to grow up in a church where there was music. And I say that because a lot of churches today do not have choirs, they don't even have praise teams. And I'm going to tell you a funny story. It wasn't until 2001 that I even first heard of the word praise team. And that's back when my church used to print out lyric sheets in the bulletin itself, you know? And it's crazy. You probably listening to this right now and being like, what? But yeah, I mean, it may have been a thing in other churches, but in my church, like, there was no such thing as a praise team. You had somebody that came up that did the scripture reading or they did the hymn, and that was it. But now you got 4 or 5 people standing with microphones in the front with a pianist and teaching you how to sing. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. So all of those things, watching the praise teams growing up and seeing the musicians, being in the choir and listening to the director and following their vision and what they saw and what they wanted for us. Um, I believe that it shapes the way I do things today in terms of music. So even when I sing, sometimes I reminisce and I can go back to when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And certain things that I learned never have left me. And so naturally, you know, even though it took a little bit of convincing from a friend of mine, a former friend, I ended up starting the praise team. And it was just um it was amazing. It was really an amazing experience trying to start a praise team and it didn't work. Now, in this day and age, here's the funny thing. The church where I'm at now, everybody is trying to recruit me. Like somebody yesterday was like, "Oh, you sing good. You want to start a group." Another person is like, "Listen, get together with these young ladies here and you can sing." And I'm just like, "No, listen, listen. I'll play drums for the evening program, but that's it." You know what I mean? But um I feel blessed in a way because my gift is being utilized. You have some people that have a gift and no one is trying to help them utilize their gifts at all. So I consider it a blessing. I can't be mad or upset. Am I apprehensive sometimes when it comes to these things? Yes, because I am a shy individual. However, um, every opportunity that we are given, I don't think that we should sleep on it, but we should take the time to think about it carefully and whether or not it's something that we truly want. And the other thing, um, I want people to understand that um, having a gift, you know, having a gift is great, but don't ever use your gift and you end up getting lost in it. There are some people that use their gifts for notoriety and fame, and that's cool, that's fine. But also, I think it's important to keep your eyes focused on God and remember that at any moment, this gift can be taken away. But yeah, that's my experience as I tried to start a praise team, and then all these other things came into play. So I've sang with a choir. I've had solos in the choir. I left the choir. Um, I was also a drummer while I was in the choir. Got clipped while I was in the choir, and years later tried to start my own little group. It didn't work out. Um, Became a drummer again in 2011, and I've been doing that for the past 11 years. Played for four different churches in that time. Yeah, just about four. And there's one that I've been with since for the last 8 years now. So it's a trip. God has taken me through so many different avenues musically. And I just look at things and I'm like, man, it really is a blessing to see everything that I've gone through. In the future, will I ever try to start a praise team again? I don't know. And the reason why I say that is because nowadays, if you try to assemble your own group and you want to take them to sing at a church or somebody asks you, everybody wants payment. That's the first thing. And look, I understand, for some people, they don't just sing like, you know, for churches, like they may be background singers or work in studios. Some people are professional singers, so you have to respect that. But also, if you're just starting out, you should really get people that are committed to just wanting to sing or have a gift that they want to get out. And then I think later on you can negotiate all that stuff. But yeah, that's been my experience with music. And it's been such a blessing. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening. And that's how I tried to start a praise team. Y'all take care. Have a good night.